Hello and welcome to a video that I've been wanting to do for a very long time. It was just a matter of finding the correct one for this video. Icebergs. And for this special, it's going to be about an hour or two long. Cryptid Iceberg. So, let's get into it.
Layer 01.
Bigfoot. The king of all cryptids, it is safe to say anyone who has never heard of cryptids before knows about Bigfoot and the legend surrounding the creature. Described as a bipedal, large, muscular, ape-like creature, roughly 6 to 9 feet tall and covered in a dark or dark brown fur, some descriptions have alleged the creature to stand as tall as 10 to 15 feet in height. In modern culture, Bigfoot is extremely popular, with many sightings, videos, photographs, and recordings of the creature, with large footprints found in North America being accredited to the creature. Gigantic octopus. The gigantic octopus, not to be confused with a giant squid. The gigantic octopus, also known as the kraken, dates back to the 17 and 1800s, being the one blamed for the sinking of many ships during that time period off the coast of Norway. Described as being over 100 feet long or over 30 meters in size. Whilst the largest confirmed giant squids peak out at a little over 40 feet, less than half that of the famous gigantic octopus. Sea serpents, or sea dragons, is a type of dragon sea monster which has been described and interpreted throughout many various mythologies, most notably Mesopotamia, Judeo-Christian, Greek, and Norse mythologies. In antiquity and the Bible, dragons were envisioned as huge serpentine monsters. Stories depicting these sea-dwelling serpents include the Babylonian myths of Tiamat, the myths of Hydra, Scylla, Cetus, and Echidna in Greek mythology, and the Leviathan in Christianity. Chupacabra. Chupacabra, which translates to goat sucker, is a cryptid located in North America, primarily located in Mexico and Puerto Rico. In 1975, in Moca, Puerto Rico, there was a series of livestock killings. At first, they would be accredited to a satanic cult, but as time went on, more killings were reported. Each of the animals was reported to have its body bled dry through a series of small circular incisions. The first attack attributed to the Chupacabra would occur 20 years later in March of 1995. 8 sheep were discovered dead in Puerto Rico, each with 3 puncture wounds in the chest area and reportedly completely drained of blood. Descriptions of the Chupacabra vary. The most common description of the Chupacabra is that of a reptile-like creature, said to have leathery or scaly greenish-gray skin and sharp spines or quills running down its back. It's said to be approximately 3 to 4 feet high and stands and hops in a fashion similar to that of a kangaroo. Another common description of the Chupacabra is of a strange breed of wild dog. This form is mostly hairless and has a pronounced spinal ridge, unusually pronounced eye sockets, fangs, and claws. Unlike conventional predators, the Chupacabra is said to drain all of the animal's blood and sometimes organs, usually through 3 holes in the shape of a downwards pointing triangle, but sometimes through only 1 or 2 holes. Jersey Devil. The Jersey Devil is a legendary creature whose origin dates back to 1735. According to popular folklore, the story of the Jersey Devil originates in the Pine Barrens in South Jersey. The legend states that South Jersey resident Jane Leeds, also known as Mother Leeds, had 12 children. Upon discovering that she would be giving birth to a 13th child, she cursed the child in frustration, claiming the child would be the devil. On a stormy night in 1735, Mother Leeds would give birth to the child while her friends gathered around her. Born as a normal child, with blonde hair and blue eyes. Then, the child which Mother Leeds held in her arms transformed, and it had eyes which glowed red, set in the horrible head of a goat. In place of its shoulders, it had the wings of a bat, equipped with a long serpentine tail, and legs with hooves of that of a horse. At that moment, the creature would give out a blood-curdling scream and escape out of the chimney, using its wings to fly away. Thus, the legend of the Jersey Devil was born. Jackalope. Jackalope is a mythological hybrid and is described as a jackrabbit with antelope horns. The origin can be accredited to a hunting outing in 1932 by Douglas Herrick and his brother, both of whom studied taxidermy and came up with the idea of a jackalope after returning from a hunting trip for jackrabbits. They would toss the carcass into a taxidermy store where it would reside beside a pair of deer antlers, sparking Herrick's idea for a jackalope. Thunderbird. The Thunderbird is a legendary creature in certain North American indigenous peoples' history and cultures. It is considered a supernatural being of power and strength. The Thunderbird is said to create thunder by flapping its wings and lightning by flashing its eyes, according to different native tribes. It is especially important and frequently depicted in the art, songs, and oral histories of many Pacific Northwest Coast cultures, but it's found in various forms among some peoples of the American Southwest, East Coast of the United States, the Great Lakes, and the Great Plains. And in modern day, it's achieved notoriety as a cryptid similar to that of Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster. Loch Ness Monster. The Loch Ness Monster, affectionately known as Nessie, is basically the modern logo for cryptozoology next to that of Bigfoot, because everyone's heard of Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster. And the story of the Loch Ness Monster goes that it is a creature in Scottish folklore said to inhabit Loch Ness in the Scottish Highlands, and is just described as a large, long-necked, with, one or more humps protruding from the water, kind of dragon, or like a snake almost. And popular interest and belief in the creature is varied, and its introduction to modern culture was back in 1933, with all the evidence surrounding it being mostly just anecdotal and highly disputed, because the scientific community just alleges all the sightings as being hoaxes, wishful thinking, or just misidentification of something like a stick. Yeti. The Yeti, also known as the Abominable Snowman, is a 10-foot tall ape-like creature similar to that of Bigfoot, but rather than being located in America, it's located in the Himalayan mountain range in Asia. It's basically the same kind of deal as Bigfoot, except that it's bigger and is covered in white fur. Dover Demon. The Dover Demon is a small humanoid reported from Dover, Massachusetts. It was a subject of an intensive scare during the 1970s when multiple witnesses came forward with their sightings. The Dover Demon is described as looking at some sort of gray variety of an alien, except that it has rosy tan colored skin instead of a gray skin. The Dover Demon has a large head and a small stick-like body. It can be bipedal, but it often travels on all fours or switches back and forth between the two modes of locomotion. It has eyes that glow, usually orange or sometimes green. It does not seem to wear any clothing, and unlike the alien Greys, the Dover Demon does not seem to be associated with any UFOs. It just wanders around on its own. Mothman. The Mothman is another similarly well-known cryptid in the same vein as that of Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster. Originating from West Virginia, the Mothman was first sighted back in the 60s, with its first initial sighting at Point Pleasant, West Virginia in November 12, 1966, where 5 men were in a cemetery preparing a grave for a burial when they saw something they couldn't explain. Lifting off from the nearby trees, it was a brown winged creature, and the men held on to the fact that what lifted off beyond the trees was no bird, it was a humanoid. A description for the Mothman is that of a bipedal, winged humanoid, and despite its name, which was given to them by newspapers, it's no way moth-like, excluding the winged part, obviously, and it has appearance more like that of a large humanoid owl. His coloration varies from black-gray to even brown, although it's usually the darker shades. He is often reported to be about 7 feet tall with a wingspan of about 10 to 15 feet or more, plus the ability to fly over 100 miles per hour. Sometimes he's described as not having a head with huge red eyes set in the chest. These eyes are reported to be glowing or at least reflective. The details of his face and his feet have never been adequately described. One witness who saw the face clearly can only say that the details were horrible and monstrous. She had terrible nightmares and nearly suffered a nervous breakdown. Anyone who gets a close look at the Mothman seems to suffer from extreme fear and psychological distress, sometimes lasting for months or even years afterward. In particular, people say that a sense of pure evil overcomes them when they see the Mothman's eyes. Greys. So, Greys are gray aliens, which are the most common aliens reported in ufological cases. Named because, well, they're gray. These sapient hominoids have gathered fame and attention from researchers thanks to incidents such as the Roswell UFO crash of 1947 and the abduction of Barney and Betty Hill in '61. And when you think of an alien, this is usually what comes to mind. And in terms of biology, they're around like 4 to 5 feet tall, and I think that they're probably real. Because they're what's associated with the flying saucer UFO types and, the abductor of humans to study them, the ones that erase people's memories, so on and so forth. And, their images all over popular media, but they might be real, and the government is just, covering them up. Bat Squatch. So, Bat Squatch is a hybrid between a Sasquatch and a bat, and may just be mistaken for identifications of the Mothman, and it's said to be around 9 feet tall and has the ability to affect car engines with yellow eyes, a dog-like muzzle, blue fur, sharp teeth, bird-like feet, and leathery bat-like wings that span up to 50 feet. The Mongolian death worm. The Mongolian death worm is shaped like a sausage, about 2 feet long, has no head nor leg, and it is so poisonous that merely to touch it means instant death. It lives in the most desolate parts of the Gobi Desert, as quoted by On the Trail of Ancient Man from Mongolian Prime Minister Dabdin Bazar in 1922, who was describing the worm. It's probably not real. I don't think that there is a extremely poisonous worm that lives in the Gobi Desert. It's more than likely just a Tartar sand boa, as locals see the sand boa and they interpret it as a Mongolian death worm. The Enfield Monster. So, the Enfield Monster is that of either an alien or a demon, and is probably one of the creepiest and strangest creatures to be chronologized. So, the bizarre string of events that would eventually stir Enfield, Illinois, back in April 25th, 1973, would start with a young boy named Greg Garrett claiming to have been attacked by the truly bizarre beast while playing in his backyard. So the child's description was that of being no less than having 3 legs, grayish, slimy skin, short claws, and reddish eyes. The creature also apparently stamped on the boy's foot with its own 3, and had a clawed foot-like appendage, which, destroyed his tennis shoes. So Greg was fucking crying his eyes out, and ran back inside to his house, away from the fiend. And even though he was like a little kid, it's the first one on record, and the one that would actually make the creature become kind of infamous was like a half hour later, when his neighbor also had an encounter with the creature at about like 9:30 in the evening. The McDaniels. They would return home to 2 of their kids, Henry Jr. and Little, just freaking the fuck out because they were like, "Bro, that thing tried to break into the house, the door," and it also tried going through the air conditioning unit. And the parents were gone. It had also started scratching at the front door. So Henry McDaniel, the dad, is like, "All right, bro." He opened the door, and he was like, "Bro, come on." And he was fucking terrified as well, because standing on his fucking front steps was the same red-eyed monster that had terrified the kids, and that fucked with Garrett like less than an hour before. So he slammed the door in his face, and then he got a flashlight and a gun, and he shot the thing like 4 times. I think one of them hit, and then the other ones just missed. And I think he quoted as saying it had 3 legs on it, a short body, 2 little short arms coming out of its breast area, and 2 pink eyes as big as flashlights. It's 4.5 feet tall. It was grayish colored. It was trying to get into the house. It was the same kind of details that I literally was just reading this. Greg is the first kind of details that Greg gave as well. It's the same account, different person. And Yeah, so the shot that hit him, the thing just hissed at the homeowner, and he just ran away. But this thing moved freaking quick because in like a 50-foot distance, it literally managed to cross that in literally 3 leaps and then just ran away into the brush. The Flatwood Monster. The Flatwood Monster is a cryptid that is likely an alien or of extraterrestrial nature, and respectively, it was located in West Virginia near Frametown in the forest of the Flatwoods, which is why it's got its name, the Flatwood Monster. So, the entity was initially reported as being about like 10 feet tall and 4 feet wide. It's, compared to the average human, it's fucking massive, right? And it's like some sort of robot-looking thing, rather than being of an organic material, because it had a cowl in the shape of an ace of spades behind a red, round head. And set in the head was 2 eyes, and they're described as like portholes, glowing green-orange, and they're the size of $half. So this body for this creature was metallic armored structure lined with thick vertical pipes. And the color can't really be agreed on because like some people say it's black, other people say it's green. And the same thing with the arms. Most just state the monster has no arms, it's armless, while others claim that it possessed small toy-like arms. So, the Flatwood Monster is believed to be the same creature from Frametown, as it had a similar appearance from the waist down, and the waist up being reptilian was the difference in, I think, Frametown, yeah. So the sightings that would set off the investigation into this creature was in 1952 when 3 boys witnessed an object in the sky, and it came to crash land on land belonging to a farmer. And once they saw it land, they went to one of the mom's house to report seeing it and being like, oh, it's a UFO that crashed. So the boys and a couple locals went over to see what it was, and it was like a group of 6 people along with a dog. And, you know, after traveling for about like a quarter of a mile, the group reached the top of a hill where they saw a large pulsating ball of fire, and they smelled a mist that it made their eyes and noses burn. And the farmers that tagged along with them, they noticed these 2 small lights to the left of the object that crash landed, and they pointed their flashlights towards it, which revealed the creature. And it emitted like a shrill hissing noise before it, you know, flew towards them, because like I said, this is not like a physical thing. It's like a robot almost, right? And because of that, it just switched directions and then headed off towards the red light in the sky, and everyone just freaked out and ran away. And once the mom got home that the kids originally talked to, they contacted the sheriff and the news, and the reporter just started conducting interviews to the site, and they reported that there was a sickening burnt metallic odor still there once the deputy and the sheriff had started searching the area, but they didn't find any trace of what they encountered. And after that event, the investigators that were associated with the civilian saucer investigation obtained a bunch of accounts from witnesses who claimed to have experienced a similar phenomena. This also included the story of a mom and her daughter who claimed to have encountered a creature with the same appearance and the same odor a week before to that incident on September 12th, 1952. And that encounter reportedly messed up the daughter so bad that she was in a hospital for like 3 weeks. So they also gathered a statement from the mom of the farmer in which they said that the approximate time of the crash, the house had been violently shaken and the radio had cut off for like 45 minutes. And a report from the director of the local board of education claimed that he had seen a flying saucer taking off at 6:30 on the morning of September 13th, the morning after the creature was sighted. And the day after the Flatwoods incident, a couple taking a leisurely drive through the mountains of Frametown, West Virginia, at dusk were met with a similar experience where their car came to a stop and refused to start, and right thereafter, they had a similar odor, the putrid sulfuric metal odor they were talking about filled the air, and the couple, circling around their vehicles to try and figure out what's going on, they spotted the Flatwoods monster, and the difference was that from the waist up, it was a reptilian humanoid, and they thought that was the same creature sighted in Flatwoods, which was known as the Frametown monster. The Globster. So the Globster is like a big blob, basically, and they are usually just decomposed whale carcasses, but the weirdest example of this is the Montauk monster, which is just an animal carcass of, kind of the same origin, but we do not know what it is. To this day, we still don't know what it is. It might just be a raccoon. I don't know. It's really freaking weird looking. Hellhounds. So hellhounds are just supernatural dogs, which are originating from the underworld where they, habitate from. And the hellhound has been used several times throughout history, throughout different mythologies, and it's not specific to one place, but they're most commonly associated with either graveyards or the underworld, and they are seen as kind of a bad omen in a way, either as guardians or gatekeepers for the underworld, and kind of omens of death, or bearers of death. The Loveland Frog. So, the Loveland Frog, which originates in Ohio folklore, is a humanoid frog that stands about 4 feet tall that was spotted in Loveland, Ohio in 1972. The only problem is that it's not real because it's more than likely just a lizard with its tail cut off. Yeah. The Ogopogo. So the Ogopogo is basically the Loch Ness Monster of British Columbia, which is said to inhabit Okanagan Lake in British Columbia, Canada. And the only thing about this kind of stuff is that it's like, look, dude, I get the folklore and the tales behind it, but why would it be in a lake and why not be in the ocean? Because that at least makes it more believable, but dude, if it's a lake, everyone's passed by it, and it'd be pretty easy to just scan the whole thing. The Popelic Monster. So the Popelic Monster is a half-man, half-goat, sometimes half-sheep creature that lives beneath a railroad trestle over Floyd's Fork Creek in the Fisherville area near Louisville, Kentucky. So in most accounts, the monster is, like I said, a human-goat hybrid with a deformed body of a man, and has a powerful fur coat that covers its legs, and it has short, sharp horns that protrude from its forehead that are nestled in long, greasy hair that matches the color of the fur on its legs. And with no actual reported sightings, it more than likely just exists as a realm of myth and legend, but it has caused people's deaths in that because it's located on a train trestle, kids will go over, conduct a bravery test, and they'll dare someone to climb the trestle. But the problem is that in the summer of 1987, a boy fell to his death because a train was coming, and to evade the train, he ended up falling, and the same fate would meet another boy 13 years later. So, yeah, not too great. Reptilians. So, reptilians are, like the name implies, lizards, but these are humanoid lizards, so half human, half lizard. And this goes hand in hand with the Loveland Frog. That's a reptilian. But the reptilians that you're probably thinking of are the ones from conspiracy theories that are reportedly, 7 foot tall, muscular build, scaly green skin, glowing eyes. And the conspiracy theories surrounding it report back to the theorist David Icke, who claims that 43 U.S. presidents are lizards, and that includes also Queen Elizabeth of England. And his belief is that there is an entire underworld of lizard people who receive protection from the government and live in tunnels deep within the Earth's shell. And while it does seem crazy, I literally have a picture on my phone. I'm going to show it now. How the fuck is this real? Like, this is on the actual Twitter account. I don't know. I don't know. Fucking bizarre stuff, man. The Wendigo. So the Wendigo is a lonely man-beast that lives in the forest waiting to feast on human flesh, and originates from Native American folklore tying itself to cannibalism. So it's a cold climate creature that's usually spotted in northern states like Minnesota and mostly in Canada. It goes hand in hand with the Skinwalker. The Skinwalker is like the Midwestern version of a Wendigo, but a Wendigo is a creature with owl-like eyes, large claws, and a very emaciated body, or sometimes like an ash-toned skeleton. And in all cultures in which the Wendigo myth appears, it shares the belief that the human could turn into a Wendigo if they end up being cannibalized, where, let's say you're with a group of people, you get trapped somewhere, and you run out of food supplies, and you eat someone out of desperation, you end up becoming a Wendigo. And it's kind of a story of a deterrent to warn against resorting to cannibalism, or else you would end up becoming one of these monsters. The Yowie. So the Yowie is one of the names from Australian folklore of an entity that lives in the outback. So the Yowie is basically the Australian Bigfoot. The only difference is it's fucking giant. It's literally like at the low end it's 6'11", and on the high end it's 12 feet. It's freaking ginormous. So the origin, for the term was back in 1875, where among the Kamilaroi people, Reverend William Ridleys would write a book about it, and denoted that Yowie, Y-O-W-I, is a spirit that roams over the earth at night. And the descriptions that we have of it are of its footprints and its feet, which, provided by the Yowie witnesses, are even more varied than those of Bigfoot, with its nose being described as wide and flat, and it's kind of just timid and shy. It's not really that violent. I mean, different reports report that's really violent, but for the most part, it's just a big version of Bigfoot. Dragons. So we know that dragons are a reptile-like legendary creature that existed in many different types of folklore throughout the world. And while beliefs about dragons are varying through region to region, we know that the devil in Christian mythology was depicted as a seven-headed dragon, and for the most part, they probably existed as, dinosaurs minus the fire-breathing part, or kind of like a big crocodile, or what's the one from Australia called? The poison one. A Komodo dragon. I mean, that's called a dragon, but the one that you think of with the wings and the fire breathing, the big tail, that's just, from folklore and legend, but mine's the fire breathing part. Maybe it existed back in the day, who knows. Hydra. So the Hydra is a water type dragon that stems from Greek and Roman mythology, who would be slain by Hercules in Greek mythology, with its head being cut off, being replaced by two heads, according to the tale. And it would usually be around like 6 to 13 meters in height, with the backstory of it being that it was the offspring of Typhon and Echidna, the cryptids I mentioned earlier on the video. Umibozu. The Umibozu is a sea-dwelling creature from Japanese folklore. Its name is derived from the characters for sea and Buddhist monk, which also alludes to the spirit's possible origin. Supposedly, Umibozu are vengeful spirits of priests who drowned at sea. Their appearance is that of a giant human head with a shaved scalp and a perpetual smile. They have also been described as having cloudy or misty shrouded bodies with serpentine limbs. According to legends, Umibozu capsized ships and drowned seamen who insult or disrespect them. According to one story, if angered, they ask that the crews provide a barrel that it proceeds to fill with seawater to drown them. To avoid this fate, it is necessary to give the Umibozu a bottomless barrel. Skinwalker. The Skinwalker is by far my favorite cryptid. Literally my favorite cryptid. So, to the degree that I actually kind of am afraid of these things, a Skinwalker is a Native American legend, and they are local to Nevada, New Mexico, Arizona. They're just in the Midwest around that region. You will see Skinwalkers. So how it works is that it's in the same vein of a Wendigo in that it is a evil spirit that is the resort of cannibalism. And the powers that manifest because of this is a Skinwalker can actually transform into other living creatures. So you can see deers or wolves or whatever that are Skinwalkers, and it can also imitate human voices. So if it kills a victim, it can take on the voice of that victim. So you'll see cases of people out in the middle of the boonies, the middle of the desert, the middle of nowhere, basically. And you just hear, "Help! Help! Help!" You know? Yeah, that's a Skinwalker, dude. And yeah, they usually are man. In their normal form, they're a man wearing the skin of like a wolf, but for the most part, they're gonna be transformed into other animals. The Fresno Nightcrawler. So the Fresno Nightcrawler are a legendary cryptid from Fresno, California that look like these little white blobs with long legs that just walk around. Now, it can be kind of scary looking, be kind of cute looking, depending on the person, but not much is known due to the really grainy picture quality. Baba Yaga. So, the Baba Yaga is from Slavic folktale and is a female ogre who steals, cooks, and eats her victims, which usually are children. So, the Baba Yaga usually resides in a house that sits on 2 chicken legs. That's about it. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention that she rides around in a kettle that she uses the pestle to maneuver with. Or I guess, in other depictions, she'll be riding in a bucket with a broom propelling her. Centaurs. Centaurs are described as being half horse, half human, with the upper body of a human and lower body of a horse, with the explanation for their depictions being that of a non-written civilization coming into contact with horseback riding. That's why you see the Aztecs encountering the Spanish thinking themselves as centaurs. Dwarves. Dwarves are associated with German mythology and are beings that dwell inside mountains, known for their wisdom and also being very short. And although scholars have questioned whether this is a later development stemming from comical portrayals of the beings, the etymology of a dwarf is contested, with sightings dating back to as early as 1138, where it was reported that a dwarf was captured in the cellar of a German monastery, and it was very black and did not speak any known language. What they did was, when they captured it, they tied it up briefly, and they slackened the rope to see what the dwarf would do. Once it was able to escape, it would return back to the cellar where it was found, and it raised a stone from the ground, disappearing through a tunnel where nobody was able to follow it. And that tunnel was sealed off with a cross after that point. Gargoyle. A gargoyle is a stone statue with a humanoid race with wings with demonic features that is usually used as a way of defense, warding away evil spirits, and used to protect buildings such as cathedrals or castles. Giants. Giants are essentially just bigger humans that are originated from the prodigious size and strength that are common with the mythology and the legends of many different cultures, with the word giant being a derivative of Greek mythology. With the first cases of giants being considered the Nephilim, which would be the offspring of a half-human, half-god creature that were, believed to have been giants, with the Hebrew term read as Nephilim by some scholars, or the other words fallen by others. With other cases of giants being encountered at the south tip of South America, with explorers arriving and saying, hey, look at those giants, And here's a picture of their skull size. I mean, the thing is, there is technical proof of this kind of thing, with 11-foot tall humans being associated with these bones and these bone fragments. Giants are also said to live underground in caves and may inhabit the interior of the earth, according to some rumors. Gnomes. Gnomes are small mythological creatures that live underground and, in some regards, are spirits, earth spirits, who guard mines of precious hidden treasure hidden deep inside the earth. Alright guys, that will do it for layer 1 of the Cryptid Iceberg. This took me a little while to edit, so if you want to give this video a like and a comment, that'd be awesome. Depending on the feedback that I get for this video, I'll make a decision from then to follow up with layer 2, but I'll more than likely just do it regardless because this is a topic that definitely interests me. So yeah, thanks for watching.